Yes, we are live, and I'm looking over there because I'm actually in the control room doing many, many jobs. And the reason for that is because my wife is really, really sick. I mean, she's running a very high fever. Yes, she's been vaccinated. I've been vaccinated, and so we've done all of the X, Y's, and Z's. But one of the things that we understand you can still, that is, get COVID, if you will, even though you might be vaccinated. But at least, supposedly, it should keep her from getting too sick. And so today we're going to do the test right after the show to find out whether she has this new Delta variant. And, you know, I miss my wife when she's not on the show because, you know, one of the things that I love about her is that she has the capacity to think differently about X, Y, and Z, and it gives me fresh bread every morning, every noonday, and every afternoon, every evening, every night. I can't brag enough about what she does for me in beauty and otherwise. She's not here, obviously, but she told me, she said, "You've got to do the show today." And I said, "Okay, we'll do this show. Daryl and I will chat for a few minutes and see what we can do with it." Now, I can't come up with, you know, the topics and keep it as controversial as she can. She is very, very good at that. And one of the things that I want to explain is that, you know, when topics are picked, you know, they're picked hopefully for our friends, that is, to get involved in the topic, because we're trying to create this environment where we talk about this and that. This versus that does not mean that this is against that. It means that we can have some ideas that compete with each other, and that's good. And so competing ideas, having fun competing. And so if I go to the golf course, I can enjoy playing golf with other people who are much better than I am and not feel badly at all. I can enjoy the game. And life is very much that way. You know, we form beliefs, and I'm going to talk about that on the place here in a few days. How beliefs are formed, a very, very interesting topic, and why beliefs need to be understood as a biological construct within this thing that I call this network of intentionality. So we're going to be talking a lot about aboutness. And we're going to try to, that is, look at it through various lenses. That is, through different sciences, etc. And so hopefully you will tune in for those conversations. But this morning we have the privilege and the honor to have a young man by the name of Daryl Furlow in the mix. Hello, Daryl.
Hello. You know, I was thinking as you were giving the intro, I guess we can call it that, but that how I was brought onto this show as the other. So, you know, whenever that or this, I don't know that it matters who carries which title. But when one's not here, I'm kind of displaced. You know, it's like, okay, where do I fit in? So I'll do my best. But it, you know, along with you, I miss your wife when she's not here. She kind of is this show as far as I'm concerned. You know, and we just kind of compliment her in our own way, I think. But anyway, that's just thought I'd share that. It's still good to be here for sure.
Okay, I mean, having, the title as the other, that's interesting. Oh, DB Cisco said, "Hi, Daryl."
Hello, DB. Like
Yeah.
to meet you one day.
Yeah, this guy is a wonderful guy. He writes beautiful music, has a great voice. I wish you would send us another song. That would be powerfully good.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that. And we may need to play that track that he sent us over and over again, simply because it's good. You can't wear out good stuff.
Need to
I
play it
beg your
again.
pardon?
I said we definitely need to play it again.
Yeah. Okay. My first question to you has to do with music. If you could pick an artist out of all of the musicians and vocalists that you've heard over the years, what artist is number one in your book?
I don't even know that I could answer that question. I could give you some number ones because for me, music is such a broad category. I would have to have number ones in several categories. I can give you a couple. Possibly, at the top of the list, and it's kind of tough to admit this because it probably would, kind of disagree with a lot of people as far as, why him. But Frank Zappa would be, one of them. And it's not because his music is so pleasant or so popular. It's neither of those in most cases. He could write probably some of the most beautiful music ever written. He just, that wasn't him. But he was a genius. And he spoke to a lot of things that needed to be spoken to, as far as I'm concerned, through his music, through his words. And it has meant a lot to me over the years. As far as vocal and just music that touches me personally, Roy Orbison would be at the top of the list. He had one of the most unique voices ever, in my opinion, and well respected among musicians. It amazed me that this guy from Wink, Texas, about 50 miles from where I grew up, was so popular among musicians. He did a couple of things where he just wanted other musicians to back him up and perform with him. And it was like a who's who list. Everybody wanted to record with him. And so the voice fit the man, as far as I'm concerned, when he would sing songs like Crying or Over You, and, just songs that would just, if you listen to him, listen to the words and listen to his voice, they just tug at your heart. I still have a hard time listening to some of his music without crying.
Now, he has become extraordinarily famous in other countries because of the quality of his voice. Did you know that?
Well, he was when he was alive, and I'm not surprised that it continues on because the music hasn't changed, neither has his voice. It was incredible. And there's probably better trained voices out there. There's probably better quality voices out there. But his had such a uniqueness about it that is so rare. And I think it had to do with his character and his personality that came out through this wonderful voice that he had. So, he's at the top of, but then there's others, and like I said, I don't think I could choose one. I could sit here and think a while and come up with several that are my favorites. I love Mason Prophet, and that's one that most people haven't even heard of. It's a couple of guys that got lost in my opinion, they got lost in Christianity, and we lost track
Talbot
of them.
Brothers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, John Michael Talbot. The first time that I heard him, he was on stage sitting in a rocking chair with an acoustic guitar.
I
And
remember you telling
I
me
was, I mean, I was just floored. I mean, it was,
his hair was 2 or 3 feet long, right? I mean,
I
came
mean,
down
he
there.
had, yes, he had the long hair and all that, but the, the hair didn't play the guitar.
No, no, he was extremely talented. Yeah.
I mean, but the thing that I liked about John Michael Talbot was that he had the ability that is to stick, that is to being a musician and a vocalist without getting engaged with entertainment. And some people go for the entertainment. I think it was Vince Gill who made the statement years ago. He said, "I'm a musician, not an entertainer," and that means a lot to some of
Yeah.
those, in that field of music. And so, yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm going. By the way, I wanted to ask you a handful of questions about musicians. What was your view on Three Dog Night? I mean, did you like that band?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I thought they were, they put out a lot of good songs and kind of a variety. I think they were one of the better groups of that era. I guess the '70s mostly is, but yeah, I was a fan, still am. I think I have a CD of their greatest hits, and I listen to it every so often.
Did you enjoy the music that was, came before them, like by the Beatles and even the
Oh,
Monkees, right?
yeah. It's kind of funny that you bring that up. When we were young, my sister and I, she was a big Monkees fan. I mean, she thought they were the greatest. And to me, I thought, they're corny, they're cheesy. The Beatles are the best. And so we were back and forth. But you know what? You want to hear something funny? My sister is the biggest Beatles fan. She's a bigger Beatles fan now than I think I ever was, and especially am now. I still like their music. I
Right,
listen to it occasionally and think they were extremely talented.
right.
It was an amazing quartet of guys, even Ringo. My brother-in-law and I got to talking about him just a few days ago, believe it or not. And drummers everywhere have ultimate respect for Ringo Starr because of how unique his drumming was. And it took me a long time to really notice that about him. So the group as a whole, it was 4 guys that somehow got together, and what they had, it just worked. It just meshed. And then even as individuals, they all did fairly well, but not like they did as a team.
Right. Now, when it comes to drummers, what was your point of view that is concerning the drummer for Rare Earth?
I wasn't, I liked some of their music, but I never really became a fan of Rare Earth. So I can't say no, I know much about them. And I don't say that because I didn't think they were good or they didn't reach out and grab me. And, there was such a variety, so many different ones that you missed out on some of them. You just couldn't devote enough time to hear them all. And so there were several, and that's one of them. And I remember a song or two, but I can't say much about the group themselves.
What about the Eagles?
Eagles, it's interesting about them. I became a fan of theirs late in life, kind of when in their heyday, which they're somewhat still in, but when they were the big name out there, I didn't pay much attention to them. But I've listened to them since then and realized, yeah, that is one powerful group with some top-notch music, in my opinion.
When it came to Grand Funk Railroad, one of the things that they had was just a garage band. They were not quote unquote professional, but considered professionals because they made money at it. But they liked to make a lot of noise, and they became very popular. So, what say you about Grand Funk Railroad?
Well, kind of the same thing as Rare Earth. They had a couple of, a few songs that I listened to and enjoyed, but I never really became a fan of Grand Funk. it's interesting that I was in a gospel group back in the mid 70s, played drums for a little local gospel band. And these guys were pretty good at writing songs, including my brother-in-law. He was in the group with me. As a matter of fact, he was probably the biggest reason I joined. But anyway, one of them came up with a song based on, and they incorporated that song, "I'm Getting Closer to My Home." And that's the way the song ended. And I thought it was really cool. And that was one of the better things that I think Grand Funk did.
You know, a lot of the songs that were done live, and I used to go to a lot of concerts, Grand Funk would get into what's called a jam, and a lot of people really don't understand what a jam is, but some of their songs would last 15, 16, 17 minutes. And it was like, oh, maybe the rapture will take place. I don't know. But what say you about all of the lengthy songs that is back in the 60s and the 70s?
I was a fan of most of that. Now, some of it was monotonous. Some of it, like, okay, let's say Cream. They did a song where Ginger Baker did a drum solo, and that's pretty cool. You know, he was talented and he was a workhorse. I mean, he played for 15 minutes just banging. But, you know, it's not something you want to listen to on a regular basis, just some guy going crazy on the drums. Whereas another thing I did recently, and I'll confess to this, I still enjoy this sort of thing. Let me go back to, I think it was in Waco, Texas. We were there one time, went in the dollar store to pick something up, and I made my way to where they had their DVDs. And I found one, and for $3, it said Greg Lake. And I thought, I bet that might be good. And it's one of the best DVDs I ever bought. Greg Lake of Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Right.
And it was a live performance, a group he put together probably, I don't know, maybe no more than a year before he died. I took that copy to Odessa with me when I went a couple of weeks ago and said to my brother-in-law, hey, you want to listen to this? He said, yeah. And he had just bought some new speakers for his sound system. So we sat in there and he couldn't stop commenting. He just, this is great. This is fantastic. The sound is excellent. The group, I mean, he was amazed by it. And we just sat there and soaked it in. Very, very talented bunch of guys. And some of the things they did were lengthy, but it was music. You know, it reminds me, and I'm a fan of the classics. I like Aaron Copland. I would put him kind of at the top. That piece he wrote called Fanfare for the Common Man. Ironically, Greg Lake and Emerson, Lake and Palmer did their own version of that, which was, I like each one as much as the other, possibly. But some of those, classical musicians, for example, a lot of people have heard of 2001: A Space Odyssey. They think it's that the music came from the movie that also sprach Zarathustra, but it didn't. That was written by Strauss, and the whole piece is, I don't know, somewhere around 40 minutes long. But if you listen to it and really hear it, it is gorgeous. It's a beautiful piece of music, the whole thing.
Right.
And so, I'm a fan of lengthy songs, but it's got to be good music or I lose interest.
I'll be honest with you, it takes people like Carlos Santana, and the reason I like him. His style and all of that so much has to do with he reminds me of so many musicians that I've had the honor of sitting down and doing music with. And one of the things that impresses me about him is that he doesn't do any of his songs the same way twice. And a lot of people find a lot of fault in that. What's happening? You can't remember your line or whatever. This guy is way outside of the box. And so if he plays, let's say the lead part in, whatever song it is, he's going to hear something different. And Rick, one of the guys that is such a blessing, that is, to NCG, and he's behind the scenes all the time. He's very good at guitar. He's very much like that.
Oh yeah.
You can ask him to play or sing something, and it's never going to be the same way twice. You can ask him to do a song just like this person over here or over there, and it's not going to come out the same way twice. And he's this musical guru, if you will, if you just leave him alone. And I've had so many times in which we would get into these these jams. I'm playing the bass, or let's say the guitar or whatever, and here, I can make certain movements, and all of a sudden, what can you do here? One of the most interesting things that a bassist can do is, what can you do with G? And wow, when you first start out, you can't do anything but hit a G. After a while, you'll learn enough about what that means. You can work around it to where you can do something and never duplicate yourself and play for 20 minutes, and you're still playing, G. Some people will get that. Other people won't, but it's what musicians enjoy doing. And that was always the fascinating thing to me, was when, these guys get out there. It wasn't like, oh, we have this song, we've prepared this thing. No, they would simply say, here's the prepared part, and we're going to go into the unprepared part. And they were willing to do that and make the mistakes that are made in real time. And that's when I really, really, really got into a concert, is when they left the prepared music and just took off just to see where that might go. Jimi Hendrix was like that. He was very, very talented, could just get into the groove and just feel his way through it. And it was, I don't know, when I see artists like that, I'm just going, wow. And so, yeah. Let me name a different group, and the name of the other group would be maybe a country western singer. What do you think of Johnny Cash?
I had a lot of admiration for Johnny Cash, and somewhat of an appreciation as well. As far as country music, he's at the top, I think. He had a unique voice. It wasn't the best voice, but you always knew it was Johnny Cash, and there's something to be said for that alone. But I really think he had a heart for people, and it came out in his music. One thing, I had the privilege of going to Nashville a couple of times. I've got a son that lives there, and the first time we went to the Grand Ole Opry and didn't even get to see the inside of it, which, I don't even know if I could afford to go to a concert there. But I would like to have gone in and toured or seen it. But we went into the gift shop, and they had a Johnny Cash DVD there. And I thought, well, I'll buy that and listen to it. And I was very impressed with the whole thing. But one thing in particular, a guy named Chris Christopherson was one of his best friends, apparently, and greatest admirers. He wrote a song and met with Johnny. The night before Johnny was going to perform, he had the Johnny Cash show. It was on TV, ran, I forget how many seasons or how long it lasted. Didn't last too long because he didn't set well with the censors. He was pushing a narrative at the time that they wanted to censor, and this was one of those cases where he ignored them, because Chris brought Johnny this song, And he said, "This is for you. I want you to sing it." And he looked at it and he said, "I'm singing that on my show tomorrow." So he sat and he learned it. And when he showed it to me, everything had to be approved. And he showed it to whoever he had to show it to, and they said, "No, you can sing that, but you're going to have to leave this line out." And he said, "I'm not." And so he sang it as the song was written. And it's that song, I never can remember the title of the song, but it's on the sleepy city sidewalks, wishing, Lord, that I was stoned.
Yeah, it has to do with Sunday. It's
Yeah,
one of
Sunday
my,
morning coming down.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
My father-in-law, he's a big fan of Johnny Cash, and when we do karaoke down here, that's his go-to. He enjoys singing that song.
well, when they said that he would have to leave out that line, wishing, Lord, that I was stoned, the censors were saying, no, no, that promotes, drugs and people wishing they could be stoned. And it was actually the opposite. If you listen to the song and you listen to the words, it'll make you cry, because it was actually Chris's experience. He was sharing he was on the outside. He had walked by a house and he'd smelled chicken cooking. He would hear the songs being sung in the church, and he's out there alone on the city streets wishing that he was stoned because he feels so terrible. He's coming down, and song, it should have had the adverse effect. He should have said, made people say, "I don't ever want to be there." If it would keep someone off drugs, I think Chris would have been happy. Well, when Johnny got up and performed that song, Chris was sitting in the balcony somewhere. Well, Johnny had located him. And when he came to that line and he sang it, he said, he looked right at me. And Chris said, that was the proudest moment of my life.
Yeah.
And so, that's Johnny Cash. He's a guy that was willing to push the envelope for the betterment of people. And I know you like that song, Man in Black, and that's probably the best.
I was going to bring that up. I mean, that is a powerful song. I mean, does it move you? If it doesn't, there must be something wrong with you. I mean,
exactly.
That is so good.
Yep.
And so, yes, if you see me looking down, that is during the show, I'm looking for comments, okay? I don't always look at the camera, and so please forgive me if you don't like that. But, one of the things that I have enjoyed throughout the years would be music. But I do like poetry. And one of the reasons that I resonated for so many years, and I still do, that is with the biblical corpus, has to do with its poetry. Lots of people don't approach, let's say, some of these writings as poetry, and they get offended about what's there simply because they don't understand that it's poetry. One of the things that I love about the Hebrew text has to do with its creative processes. It's something that's there that you can say, wow, we can continue to read stuff into this because it's intended to be a creative process. It's not intended to leave a message that you get stuck in. And I love that. I really do like, that kind of mindset. And so when I see, so many people debating on the streets about, some of these books, one would be Bereshit. I see atheists trying to take on theists all the time concerning that particular book. And I'm always saying both of those people trying to engage in debate are losing the debate. They're losing their way. They're losing sight of what that is. It would remind me, it reminds me very much of a person who doesn't like music, just can't stand the fact that some people enjoy music. And I don't know. That comes up, all the time for me, simply because I'm always engaged in conversation, and people talk about music, but eventually they're going to start talking about religion. And when you start talking about religion, typically a quote or something from some experience will come up, and so people will explain it, typically in a Christian fashion. If they live here, or if they're from overseas, they will explain it, in a different way. But we're not talking about religion today. We're talking about music and what people have done, that is, throughout the years with their lives in music. And I really believe that there are a lot of people in music who want to do something good for humanity. And then at the same time, you see those in music trying to take advantage of it in a marketing way just to get rich. And that's a turnoff to me. And so can you speak to that, Daryl?
Well, yeah, maybe so, but I'd rather, while I'm thinking about it, because you brought up the biblical corpus, and the book, I think, that we call Genesis, I think is Bereshit is the Hebrew term for that, right?
Bereshit.
Yeah. But there's a song that comes to mind and it's like a combination of the poetry of the Bible, and it's one of the best. I still resonate with it, and I think I can explain why. There's a particular line in it. It's a song written by a guy named Noel Paul Stookey, who was one of the trio of Peter, Paul, and Mary. And the song is "There Is Love," and it's a beautiful piece of music, just gorgeous. But there's a line in it that would be extremely, I'm afraid, controversial in our day and time, where you've got all these hundreds of genders, or how many ever they've come up with so far, and they may not be through coming up with different genders. But this is a biblical idea, but in my opinion, it goes much further than that. And he says, as it was in the beginning, is now until the end. Woman draws her life from man and gives it back again. There is love. And, for a lot of people, for a long time, I think, that has resonated, that therein you find love, that kind of relationship between a man and a woman. And it's obvious that, naturally speaking, that's where life comes from. That's where human life comes from. It's drawn out of man and given back. And to me, that's you talk about poetry. I think that's beautiful. And possibly for me, that will never change. That's this beautiful picture of man and woman in relationship. And of course, I guess you find that idea in Scripture, but does that mean we have to attach it to a biblical text, or we have to attach it to a certain God? Or is this a reality of who we are as human beings? I think that's worth debating.
Well, I think, and I stand to be corrected, some people are simply saying that let's look at reproduction and put it over to the side. And let's try to find, to the best of our ability, what falling in love is all about. I've told my wife for years, I don't care whether you're a woman or not. I'm just in love with you because I'm attracted, that is, to who she is, A to Z. And she challenges me big time. I mean, to do better, be better. And so, for those of you who like me so much, think about it. It may be true that Rhonda has challenged me, and she's a Trump fan, and she has challenged me so much, it has bettered me. And some people can't stand, that is Donald Trump or those people who are, fans of Donald Trump. They're just, in a sense, they are just, they've made up their minds about Donald Trump, and they want to make him the scapegoat of everything or something like that. I don't know. It's
the weirdest
dysfunctional
phenomenon that I've seen in my lifetime, I think, because there's people in that category and that would prefer Mao Tse-tung or somebody like that over Trump. They would prefer who's the guy in Cuba or Hitler. I think they put him in that category, and that there's something tragically wrong with that, in my opinion. That doesn't even make sense to me. So I just thought I'd throw that in there.
I simply want to make the point that humanity can come together and have a variety of opinions and get along. I truly believe that. At the end of the day, we need to learn how to behave ourselves. And if you don't know what that means, let's do a show on pro-social behavioral models. That would be good. That would be good. I want to explore, if you will, some things in the future, and it's not going to be too far into the future, but I want to get into, I stated on another show that we were going to do a show on intentionality, but we're talking about intentionality in speech and also in thought, and I want us to look at language that is on that show, let's say, as a device, and yet separate that into various categories. And when we do, I think that it will probably demand a show on all kinds of other topics, which I will not put forth right now, but just thought that I would give that advertisement during the middle of what we're talking about here this morning. I really enjoyed the chat about music. And so tell me a little bit about what went on with you and your brother. You spent a wonderful time with your brother going to, I believe, a high school reunion, correct?
Yeah, it was his 50th year reunion, and he graduated at the same high school I did, only he graduated a year earlier. So I knew a few of the people there. One of the most interesting things that happened to me personally was that I met a guy for the first time that I'd heard about all my life. His dad and my dad were really good friends. His dad owned a radio station in Odessa, and my dad had a couple of different jobs that would associate him with radio stations. And so they became pretty good friends. And this guy graduated with my brother a year ahead of me, but I never met him in school, never met him anywhere that I know of. So I actually introduced myself to him. He knew both my brothers. He knew my dad. And now he knows me. So that was kind of interesting. But
sure.
It was a wonderful experience all the way around. We spent probably, 20 to 25 hours on the road, there and back.
Wow.
And so,
but you like to drive. I mean, come on, you love driving.
I do, especially, we left Odessa and went south. Went to a town called Crane and then McKinney and Ira Ann. And I kept commenting to my brother as we would continue on. We went through El Dorado and then into, I found a little pathway going toward Beaumont in southeast Texas that cut between San Antonio and Austin and Houston. We missed all those cities, and that's pretty incredible in itself. But there was no place we went that I said, "Oh, this is ugly. This is boring." It was all beautiful. I mean, I just soaked it in, every bit of it. But that area, when you go down below Odessa and drive into, it's just this vast area of mountains and desert and just beautiful. Couldn't soak enough of it in. So yeah, that part of it I love. But getting to spend that much time with my brother and us just relating to one another was wonderful. But the real highlight of the experience was when we all went to the nursing home where my oldest brother is, and he's pretty much confined there. It's quite an ordeal just for him to leave there, and so chances are he will be there from now on. He'll live out his life there in that nursing home. And then my brother that lives in Beaumont has no means of transportation or anything of that. I mean, he could probably save up a little money and get a bus ticket or a plane ticket or something and go somewhere. But other than that, he has no mode of transportation. And so I thought, if we're ever going to be together again, four of us. I have a sister that lives in Odessa. I said, it's probably going to be on me to do it. And I wanted to. So that was the goal, and it happened. And my oldest brother was thrilled. I think it just was something that will have meaning from now on. He's had he had a serious stroke, which renders him unable to walk or use his left arm. So he's very much restricted and confined. And since then, he's had some issues that were pretty scary. So, it's one of those things. We never know when our time will come, when our last breath will be breathed. But in his situation, it's, you kind of have to think in those terms. How many more times will we get to be together or see each other? And so for the four of us to get together and just spend a little time together visiting, just, if you will, loving each other, it was well worth the time, the effort, the expense, all of it. One of the best investments I've ever made, in my opinion. I mean, I just can't say enough about it. And the whole experience. I did get run into. That wasn't a lot of fun.
Not fun. Okay, Curtis, your brother, he is, without question, one who has a vivid imagination. He has the ability to come up with all kinds of ideas. In times past, I would always feel, just so good about what he would do. Like, he would read, let's say, a chapter in the Bible, and he would color code it, and he would explain what all that meant to him, and some of the things that he would say would be just beautiful, simply because he was taking a poetic book and putting X, Y, and Z to it. So I still miss Curtis. He's nothing but a great guy.
Come and listen to a story about a man named God.
He was
songwriter,
Yeah. And funny. My goodness. You're not going to drive down the road with Curtis in the car without having a laugh or two. He was good.
One of the places we went through, and I kind of did it intentionally, it was on the route, and I thought, okay, this will work. And it's a little town called Taylor, Texas, in Williamson County. I don't know, it's 30, 40 minutes from Austin. So we're just north of Austin, kind of northeast of there. Well, he lived there for a while, and he has lived some places that most people wouldn't want to live, and it's very understandable. was kind of one of them. So we drove through there, and he wanted to go by the house that he had lived in, and I said, okay. So we drove over there, and we drove around the neighborhood just a little bit because the guy that he lived with at the time was I guess, more or less employed by him. He had several rental properties around there, and Curtis kind of tended to them. And so we drove by a couple of those, and we're driving along, and there's this woman walking the dog. It's been, I think he said 14 years since he lived there. This woman didn't look really old, but, it wasn't a young woman, but he said, she's a crack whore. I said, do you know her? He said, well, I don't exactly know her personally, but I know who she is. And yeah, she lives with some black guy for crack. I said, okay. I'm thinking, this is a world I know nothing about, but the world that he's lived in. And several different times on this, actually, let me just go ahead and share this. When I got ran into, I'm about ready to express my belief. I think I can honestly say I believe in people. And this was an example of it. This guy hits me. I'm just driving along in my lane, and he decides to change lanes and just smashes into me. And I thought, wow, this is crazy, and I pulled over. Well, he pulled over too. And he got out. And it's this black guy, and he's got dreadlocks. And, it's one of those, it's a SUV with the little tires and the big wheels, And when he gets out, he says, I'm sorry, man, I didn't see you. I'm thinking, wow, this is great. And I said, well, things happen. It happens, He said, I guess we should exchange insurance. And I said, yeah. And I kind of got the impression that do we need to call the police, And I thought, I could tell he'd rather not. And so I didn't care. Yeah, let's exchange insurance. And I got his information. He took mine down. And Curtis kind of whispered to me, he said, yeah, he apparently sells crack. He got a pretty nice vehicle there. And I thought, okay, you can identify people, but you can't put that on this guy. We don't know anything about him. So I just got my mouth shut. I said, and I guess I'd made the decision on the spot. I'm going to trust this guy because, I've got a damaged vehicle, but I can live with it if I have to. And so I got his information. And it took me a couple of days, but when I got around to it, I didn't even know what to do. It'd been so long since I've been involved. I went to my insurance, and they said, no, you got to contact his. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, but I'll do it for you if you want me to. And I said, that'd be great. So we sat there and contacted and turned in the claim. I gave my description of what happened, and it's Geico. And he said, we'll get with him and get his story, and then we'll get back with you and let you know what we can do. And in just a few days, they called me back and said, okay, we're going to take care of it. And didn't have to call the police. He probably would have got a ticket, and what would that accomplish? He'd made a mistake. Maybe it saved him a little money. Maybe it will help on his insurance. I don't know. I hope it does. Because apparently he gave an honest account of what happened, and his insurance is going to take care of it. But if it hadn't, you know what? I could live with that. And my insurance already told me you have, what do you call it, where the other uninsured, and so they would have taken care of it. But this way, it doesn't even show up on my insurance, I don't suppose. But that all kind of tied in with the whole experience, and it was, I take it as a good experience. It just encourages me about people. I'll just put it that way.
Sure. Since you shared that, I want to share with you just a brief story. And, what's going on here. One of the things that we do a lot We go to all kinds of meetings, um, that is with law enforcement. And we're very, very pro, that is law enforcement, because we believe in our civil experiment. And if you enforce the law, it's positive. And one of the things that we want to do, we've gotten to know a lot of police officers and people in the sheriff's department, et cetera, et cetera. But, they go through some things that a lot of people just are painfully unaware of. And so we've come up with this idea, and I know a lot of golf pros and a lot of people who own golf courses and so on and so on. To make a long story short, I'm putting a thing together to where these officers can actually go play golf for free at the golf course. That is to relieve stress, because,
Nice.
to get a psychologist is quite high, and and I'm hoping that they will have the funds that, many of the officers, after they go through, I'm not going to state it, but when you get to see what we've seen, when they have to go through that, I would need to go through therapy if I had to, let's say, be a police officer and show up and someone had, beaten a baby beyond recognition. That would be, that would traumatize me. That's my point. And
Yeah,
these
sure.
people, they will go to one call and they will deal with child abuse or a homicide of that nature, and then the next person they go to is, just a person walking down the street. Why are you doing this? And people are not realizing that job is tough. I mean, 1 minute you're involved in something that you can't process. It doesn't make sense. It seems it's just so chaotic. It's just, who could ever picture that human beings would do X, Y, and Z to each other? I mean, it's sick. And so these officers are constantly, getting calls and having to go out and, witness things that I will never witness, thank God, okay? And so we have a great deal of empathy for those people who have sacrificed a lot just to become an officer, because they don't make a lot of money, number one. And number two, they go through stress day in and day out. And it's so much stress that it stresses their relationships, that is within their family and with their kids and so on and so on. And so, I mean, these people are sacrificing a lot, and I would like to see something change there to where they can live lives without, just losing everything in one sense of the word. But so we're always engaged in that. And so we've taken some projects on, that is to better this community at the same time. And we have chosen, and we've had several businesses, landscaping businesses, that have simply said, hey, we make this commitment. Each week we will go out and you just give us the yard, and we will go to that yard and we will mow the yard, edge it, weed eat, clean up, whatever. And so we've got that working. So we have businesses cleaning up. Let's say there are some elderly people who couldn't afford to clean up their yard, and so we had those things done. We also have a thing going on where we are bringing in lots and lots of dumpsters, so we can clean up the community. And we have lots of volunteers from the Navy, and so Navy personnel, they will be coming out and helping, that is to clean up yards and blah, 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 simply because, when you find communities, and this is the thing that I keep encouraging, that we need to build meaningful community. And when you find communities, especially in poverty, they don't live like people do in gated communities. And so we're out there all the time trying to put this and that together. This is why across the street from our studio, we have a small piece of property, and we're trying to turn it into a par three. And the reason for that, it's because, we open it up to where people can actually go out there and play football and soccer, and they do. We have lights out there to where they can do this at night as well. And it also is a good thing that, when you have all these lights up, people go elsewhere to do their crime, and that's good. So we're thinking about safety. But one of the things that I've tried hard to do, I've tried to, take things on in a realistic way, because you just can't snap your fingers and all of a sudden all of this grass is the same grass that you find at the golf course. And so I've had some volunteers help me, and so we're slowly getting there, but it's going to take about a year to a year and a half to change that property up, because a lot of work has to be done. We're trying to get donations in terms of dirt and even, the kind of grass that needs to be there. It needs to be a hybrid Bermuda, which we don't have yet, but we're preparing, right? We also need bunkers and all of that, which is going to require a lot of work. And so we're doing this by trying to get people in the community, that is, to find the value in how a community can organize itself to do better. Because, if kids get involved in golf and they get around people who do play golf, that's a good game. You've got good people who play that game. And to be honest with you, the odds are, the stats are in favor of that child making it. And that's what we're trying to do. And this is one of the reasons that I've reached out to a lot of golf pros, trying to get lots and lots of young people, that is, to get lessons for free. Because you'd be surprised of what takes place in a young person's life when they have a chance to better their behavior by learning a game and getting involved with good people. It's your environment has a lot to do with what you think to be true, if you will. And so we're trying to do a lot of these things, and yet at the same time we have people, like there's this elderly couple. They hate everything about community. And one of the things that I was doing yesterday, I was mowing some of the grass, so it would look good when you guys got here. And so I was out there on one of my son's mowers. He has one of these zero turns, and so it makes it rather easy. But I had raised the deck up a little bit, and I said, I'm going to mow this thing, and I'm going to do it at different levels. And I raised the deck up, and I realized that, that was quite fortunate, because that guy had placed these big concrete rocks in the grass to where it would tear up my blades when I mowed. And so if I would have had the deck lowered, it would have really, really messed up everything. And the reason that I know that it is that particular person, it's because he's tearing up, that is, a lot of things that he had with the swimming pool that he used to have in his yard, and he had that concrete left over, and so it came from his yard, and they were placed where if you had to throw it from the street, you couldn't place them so close together. The likelihood is not high there, but he could have just tossed that right over his fence. And so how am I going to respond to that? Well, I thought about it, and I'm going to go and do something that would bless both of them. And so I'm not going to do this eye for an eye thing, a tooth for a tooth thing. They did something to me that's wrong. I'm going to try to do something for them that's right and try to bless them, to try to stimulate them to do good. And I'm going to continue to do that until they change their behavior for good, if that makes sense. What say you, Daryl, about my approach here?
Well, I agree with it, and I have seen the effect of that. And it's one of those principles, you can call it poetry, you can call it something that is worth experimenting with, to say the least. And it's something that I think will actually, it could have a domino effect if people see this working and say, I really love those people, but they're stuck in this or they're stuck in that, and you've got this divide between you.
Right.
If we can do anything to tear down that divide, then I think we're well on our way to reconciling. And, we live in a time that divides are intentionally being put up. I mean, there's a great effort in this country right now to create division and make it worse.
Right.
And, and we need people that'll fight that, that'll say, no, I'm not going there.
You're making a good point. We can have diversity without chaos, but if you try to create an environment of diversity that's divisive and has all of these narratives of againstness, it's not going to do anything but destroy.
Mm-hmm.
And so do we need to have, let's say, a movement where we, better our ideas, better our behavior, and so on and so on? Yeah, we need to have better behavior and better ideas and all of that. But this needs to be something that's taken into account. We're going to have to get out of here because we're out of time. What's your final word?
Well, I've enjoyed what we're doing here this morning. It's very relaxing and yet I think informative. We haven't cornered the market on anything, but I think we have some good ideas that, that we have evidence. It boils down to people enjoying life.
It's true.
Finding that which makes life more pleasant for ourselves and those around us. And if we get something like that going, then it spreads like a cancer of a good kind. That's
right.
Not the right term, but it's kind of like in place of the cancer. But if we can spread good ideas that bring people closer together instead of pushing them farther apart, I would call that a good goal to have.
Sounds good to me. We're going to get out of here, and please know that the reason that my wife is not here is because she has a fever. We're getting her checked here in just a short bit of time to see if she has COVID-19. She has a vaccination. I do as well, but you can still get it. And so she's really, really, really sick. And so send your care and all of that, right? We love you so much. Good night, or good day, I should say. Extreme right, I'm extreme left. I'm liberal, you're a conservative, and yet we get along so well. That's marvelous, wonderful.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Amazing grace.
So today,
saved a wretch.
Like you. So today, what we're going to do.
That's good. Come on, talk to me. Get in that microphone.
What we're going to do is trying to give you a little example of.
Give me an example
of this.